So I've been fortunate enough this year to be able to go to card shows in 3 different states, which is actually really nice because living in Alaska, we don't really have card shows up here. I do go to trade night typically once a month, or at least I go every other month. And I've actually kind of thought about the possibility of starting a card show in Alaska. I haven't really looked into it too far just yet, but I've done some preliminary. Been in some preliminary talks to potentially do it, but so this year I was able to go to a card show, a small one, kind of a startup in Knoxville, Tennessee. Of course, went to Lansing, Michigan, a show that's just grown so much over the years. Really love that show. And then, of course, the National Sports Collectors Convention. Um, Here's what I've found, though. I've really found that there are several card show realities that I don't hear a lot of people talking about necessarily all the time. So the first reality that I've come to realize is that you're not going to find everything you're looking for at these shows, whether they're small shows, whether it's even the national. I do think that it's not true that if you're looking for it, you can find it at the national. I can give you a specific example. For years, I was putting together that '07, '08 Topps Rip Card set. Didn't find any of those cards for many years. Although, fun fact, at this year's National, I walked up to a guy's booth and I looked in the case, and he had 3 of them. He had the Magic Bird Dr. J. He had the John Stockton, Pete Maravich, Darren Williams. And then he had a third one that was graded. The other 2 were raw. The third one was graded that I think it had LeBron and a couple other guys. I don't know if it was LeBron, Dominique, Kobe, or I don't remember the exact combo, so forgive me. But he had 3 of them anyway. So I go up to him and I'm just like, hey, are those rip cards unripped? And he's like, dude, you're the first person all week that even knows what these are. And I thought it was really funny. Because he was kind of shocked. This is like day 3 of the National this year, and he's just like, it was like he couldn't wait to talk to me about him. And he had him priced high, and quite frankly, I don't blame him. I think he wanted like 1,000 or 2,000 for the Magic Bird Dr. J. I mean, where are you going to find them? They're just really hard to find. And but it was really cool because I told him, I was like, dude, this is my 10th National that I've been to. And you're the first booth that I've ever actually seen a single unripped rip card in 10 shows, which would be a good example that, hey, you don't find everything you're looking for. Other examples, I was looking for some Chronicles Blue Luka rookies, didn't see any. A lot of dealers, like I had mentioned this on a previous video, a lot of dealers, wisely in my opinion, they weren't putting out a lot of Luka stuff at the show. When I found rare stuff that I thought was fairly priced, I bought it. But there were several dealers that when I asked specifically what I was looking for, I would have considered other numbered stuff. A lot of them were just like, I'm with you, man. I don't want to sell them. I don't even want to put them out. I didn't bring them, or I have them in a box here, but I don't even really want to show them to you because then I might get tempted to sell them. And we just had a good laugh about it. It's like, I get it. Okay. And they would tell me like, I do think it's a good idea that you're picking these up. And I showed them a couple rare ones that I bought, and they're just like, wow, those are nice. You're looking to flip them? I'm like, nope, I am not actually. But those are a couple examples. I find that if I go to a show looking for a specific card or cards, even if they're a little easier to find, maybe something numbered to $4.99 or $3.99, I find that in the past I used to kind of have that expectation that I would find those types of cards, especially at bigger shows, and then be disappointed when I don't. I've since learned that instead of looking for specific cards with specific numbering, if I don't find them, I look for that player, because chances are pretty good that although they don't have the exact card that I'm looking for, they'll probably have other numbered cards of that player, possibly in different brands or maybe even the same brand. But that's a reality I've run into, that you're really setting yourself up for disappointment if you have specific cards and you're not willing to deviate from that, whatsoever. Second reality I've run into is, like, I guess you have to kind of understand, like, what are your expectations of the National? I've talked to a lot of people at this year's show, during and even some since, and everybody just talked about, man, it was just incredible. It was great. I wish I'd have brought more money, or I wish I'd have brought more cards to trade, or whatever, you know. Um, but I've read online that there were a couple people that were disappointed. But that's my question. Like, what were your expectations? Like, what did you expect? Like, I get it in some situations, like huge shows get just too busy, because I've heard people even talk about that with Lansing. Like, hey, it's almost too big. For me, that's a great problem to have. There's no such thing as too big for a card show. I'll make sure I have the time, and I love big shows. But I do get that some people don't like the big crowds and they don't like the huge shows. But what are your expectations? Like, are you going into a show thinking that you're going to be able to buy stuff to flip? I've known a few people that go to the National with that expectation, and they find plenty of opportunities. If they're there for multiple days and you got the time, you'll find stuff if you want to try to flip stuff. Are you going for PC stuff? Are you going there with a very narrow list? I think I mentioned before, that's a tough one. You might end up being a little disappointed. Are you going there for dollar boxes? National is great for that, but some of these big shows are really good for dollar boxes too, if you want to just spend time buying cheap cards. I respect it. For a long time, when I first got back into collecting back in 2007, the main cards I bought were somewhere between $1 and $20. I get it. Totally get it. I still like cards, and really in that $10 to $50 range, I still buy a lot of cards like that. I don't buy all mid to high end stuff. I would say my sweet spot now is typically between 50 and maybe $250. I think I've mentioned that on a previous video. My dollar amounts have gone up some over time, partially because it's hard to get a lot of the cheaper cards nowadays. But probably 50 to 250, somewhere in that range. But I get it. When you're starting, it's probably a good idea to start smaller, especially if you're not super experienced with card markets and stuff like that. But one of the solutions, if you're finding that you're getting disappointed by going to big shows, part of what I do is I've really shifted to looking for unique, rare, scarce, whatever you want to call it, cards. I'll give you an example. On my Lansing video from this summer, I was basically just looking for anything that caught my eye. Some Luka stuff, if I found them, great. But I didn't expect to find low numbered Lukas or anything at the show. I just thought if I did, it was a bonus. But I walked out of there with a Scottie Pippen early 90s pack pulled autograph, back when they were super impossible to pull. That's a PC card. You won't see me putting that on eBay. I really love that card. I love the Fleer stamp. I love the fact that it was already graded. I love the story that came with it, because I remember opening those packs thinking, yeah, we're never going to get an autograph. Are those autographs even in here? Can you shift gears from having a specific thing that you're looking for to being a little more flexible and finding stuff that are finding things that are relatively hard to find? I always find that I locate stuff that I didn't have it on any list, but I just had to have it because it really catches my eye. I also think that this applies not only to card shows but to life in general. If you're just kind of out there looking to complain about something, people that look to complain about something, they find something to complain about. It doesn't matter if it's a card show. It doesn't matter if you apply it to other areas of life. If you're living life looking to find things to complain about, you'll find plenty of things to complain about in card shows. And I'll leave it at that. Another reality that I've come to realize, and it was very apparent this year, I watch some sports card content here and there. I watch some of Neo's videos. I enjoy some of his things, and there's a lot of talk about repackers being at a lot of shows, and I can definitely confirm that. The 3 shows I went to this summer in 3 different states, there were repackers at all of them, or at least people that were buying heavily. And I can't confirm in Tennessee if they were actual repackers or not, but you know, they had the sticky notes out and stuff like that. And I'm kind of pretty neutral on that. Like, I mean, if they're willing to pay a high percentage, 85, 90, 95%, you know, that all varies based on what it is people are selling and stuff. But if there's a willing seller and there's a willing buyer, I mean, there's a lot of buzzwords being thrown around in the hobby, liquidity and all that kind of stuff. I've always been a kind of the take that cards are liquid until they're not. I do not look at cards as investments. I would never advise anybody to invest in cards because, like I said, I mean they're liquid till they're not. I don't know how else to say that, but repackers are out there pretty heavy. Again, I'm pretty neutral on it. Some people really don't like that. I don't really understand why. I don't buy repacks. I guess if I wanted to sell some stuff, I wouldn't mind selling some stuff to repackers. Like, if I'm a willing seller and they're a willing buyer and I get a good price and everybody's happy with it, does it make a difference? Like, you know, I'm kind of neutral on it, but that's a reality that I've come to deal with. Like, they're all over. Okay. So, we may not agree on this, but I'm gonna come out and say it. Comps are overrated. I'm not talking about with like your everyday cards. I'm talking about with your more scarce or rare cards. Comps are so overrated. I'm sorry, but like, I'm gonna give you an example. So I made a video a while back about finding a Yao Ming, David Robinson, Bill Walton rip card that I've been looking for like 9 years. And I got it for $132. There's another one that came up on eBay, unripped. The guy wanted, I don't remember what, a 700 best offer or something like that. And I was messaging with a friend of mine, card friend of mine, and I was like, well, he's like, yeah, you know, now the pressure's off. You already have that card. Yeah, you know, now your offer, you would probably hit the buy it now, or you probably would have hit the buy it now last year. But now it's, you know, it's probably like $200 to you, you know. I'm like, I would like to have another copy of that card, and that was exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, I'm gonna offer 200. I offered $200. Not auto declined, but the guy responded and said, "Hey, I've got another offer for $500." I didn't come back with, "Oh, that's outrageous." Like, "Oh, come on." Like I bought mine for $132, so that's what it's worth. I didn't do that. I just responded by, "Hey, man, like I bought mine for $132, but I already have one. If you have an offer for $500, that is a great offer. You know, best of luck to you." I didn't say it with any like rudeness. I didn't mean any sort of tone by it. I just meant like, man, if you get $500 for it, that's a great offer. You know, I don't need the card. I thought it'd be cool to get another one. It looks so long for the first one, but the fact that I'd looked for 9 years for that card, absolutely. If there's somebody looking for it, it'd be worth $500. I did notice that it hasn't sold yet. On a side note, but the price did drop. But comps are so overrated, especially on the harder to find stuff. Something even selling this month on bids for like $200, and a seller has it for $400, but there's no other copies available on eBay, and it's a card that comes up every 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, 9 years, whatever the case may be. That comp does not set the market, in my opinion. It can be a starting point, but I think comps are so overrated. Totally different with stuff that sells all the time. Pop 200, Pop 2000, Pop 20,000 cards. Hey man, 6 of them sold this month, all at bids. They're all within $5 to $20 of each other. I'm not arguing with that. Comps are real there. The harder to find stuff, if I want the card and I think, and it's worth the amount that they're asking to me, if I feel like it's fair, I'm just going to buy it. I don't really care what anybody else says about if they think I overpaid or whatever the case may be. I'll give you an example there, actually. I bought a 101 printing plate of LeBron. I think it was 2007. I think it was triple threads, I want to say. I probably should have taken that out, but anyways, I bought one at the National. I think I paid $500 or $550. I don't know, somewhere 500, 550. I had asked people before I bought it what I thought they were worth. Some people said as low as 200. Some people said as high as, I want to say, like 350, maybe $400. I went ahead and paid I think it was 550. Where are you going to get another one? It's a 101. They don't make them like that anymore. It's got the hologram triangle sticker on it. It was so cool. I had no issue. You know, the seller said they had a $600 price tag on it. The seller said, yeah, I've been getting offers for like $200, $250 cash at the show, and then people get bent out of shape. I'm just like, nah, I'm not going to lowball you. It's worth more than that to me anyway. So that's my take on that anyway. Last thing. So housing's expensive. Not just in Alaska, but kind of US wide. There's some areas that are quite a bit lower. There's some areas that are quite a bit more expensive, but housing's expensive. You know, whether you own or whether you rent or whatever the case may be, it ain't real cheap. Traveling's not very cheap either. You know, I try to book stuff in advance so I can get the best deals possible, and you know, but traveling's not cheap. So I get it when people say that, well, I really don't want to go to the National. It's not worth it for me, the costs. So one of the realities I've run into also is that I try, because going to the show isn't cheap, because for me it's flight, it's hotel or Airbnb, it's transportation, it's just a lot of things, you know, food and stuff, but you'd be spending that anyway. But it's a lot of things, right? So what I've done is I've made the National like a combo trip. So it works well for me because I have family that live in Michigan, but I try to go for an extra week, an extra 2 weeks prior to, so that I can spend some time with family, friends, etc., and then go to the show. So I'm not just going to Chicago for the National. I'm making a combo trip out of it. So it's almost like a 2-for-1. You know, I'm traveling a long distance, and many of you are too. You know, many of you that are flying to the National, maybe you're driving. But you know, tricky part with driving is, you know, getting time off. And that's the tricky part with making these combo trips. I work in a field where, you know, I have a couple months off in the summer. And so for me, making it a combo trip is not a big deal. But I find that if there's a way to make it a 2-for-1 type of trip where you're doing something else in addition to going to the show, you get some better value out of that. I've seen on some of the forums that people have said that they try to do that also, you know, take some of the family with and stuff, and then spend some time in Chicago, do some sightseeing and stuff like that. But just finding a way to get some better value out of it. And I know that it can vary based on, you know, what you do for a living and stuff like that. And I am fortunate in that regard that I do have time to be able to do it. But that's a reality that I've run into, that given how far I have to travel, given how expensive travel is, I really try to not just fly to the show, but fly and do some other things in addition to going to the show. So, you know, logistically, it's just something to think about if that's something that can fit your schedule. Because if I relied on going to the National and paying for it with what I'm buying at the National and flipping or things like that, I'd lose every time. Because that's not my expectation. I'm not going to the National to buy stuff and flip it to pay for the trip. I don't judge people that do. If you do, great. If you're good at it, wonderful. That's awesome. That's not what I do. And so I go there knowing that I'm going to spend money and I'm not going to come out ahead financially because it's a hobby. And I don't view these cards as investments. But the cool thing about cards is, even though I don't consider them to be investments, the cool part is, though, if I spend $2,000-$3,000 on cards at a show, that money's not gone. It's not like a sunk cost, especially if you buy the right stuff. You know, there's an expectation that you could potentially maintain a lot of value. Many cards do go up, some go down. Just depends on what you're buying, but just something to think about. So again, if you would consider subscribing to the channel, that would be great. and I'll see you in the next one.